everyone to Heart Snuggles. We are so happy you're here and brought a friend that's all the way across the world. And I'm so excited. So just give yourself a little intro.
Hey all, my name is Chad, like she was saying. I am all the way out in Australia at the moment, but I am originally from the US. Been traveling around for a while. It's kind of how I bumped into Lex through friends of friends. And now, yeah, just living abroad in a weird pandemic life and trying to figure out that middle 20s lifestyle.
Yeah, especially in Australia where you're like super locked down. I would not
Yeah,
move there, I
yeah.
don't think. I think you're handled a lot better. A lot better than I would because at least we have flexibility here, but you guys like literally are monitored in your 5K radius.
Yeah. If anyone is listening, obviously Australia has gone back into the harsher side of things where we can't leave our 5K range and only go outside for essentials and all that jazz. So it's definitely made me, again, you got to kind of either focus on yourself or just drown everything out and go numb, which I definitely have done in the past with quarantines. And I think you actually brought me out of that numbness in our last lockdown, a year ago, with that togetherness group. And now I'm kind of going into round two where I'm choosing the smart path, not going numb and kind of, focusing inward and getting some work done and doing a lot of work externally as well with some businesses and some relationship work and just, yeah, getting some work done, which is hard to do when you're trapped inside, but that's essential as well, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely confusing because it's like you have so much time. So even throughout a day, you can go through all those phases. It's like,
Oh my God. So much time in a day.
yeah, when you're locked inside all day, it's like, whoa, what is time?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And that really does put it into perspective because there's days, especially when you're working, usually outside the house where, you're really, really busy and time just like snaps right by. An hour can go by in a blink, and that is not the case at home right now, which is good in the scheme of getting stuff done. I feel like I have all the time in the world to do it. It's just finding that energy and finding that power to actually get it done, which can be a bit tricky.
And share everyone with your new project or job or passion you just started.
Yeah, it's weird because I've kind of always been doing things and working for my friends and my family and my community, like designing and creating and photographing and things like that since I was 13. I kind of, in quotations, ran a business. I was always doing this since then, but I never really wanted to validate it, and actually like put a name to it and put a brand to it and make it seem like I'm actually doing it because I have value. I've primarily just been doing it because I know I could do it. And that was like photo shoots when I was younger and changed into website design and graphic design and brand strategy and whatnot. And like I was saying earlier, with being in lockdown, you either numb it out or you get real with yourself. And especially now realizing we should kind of all have side hustles and side projects and always have a plan B, C, and probably a D at this point. I realized that that's a huge part of my life that I should kind of be transitioning into at least some sort of passion project, if not a real company. So yeah, I designed like a gray iris design is what I came up with the help of a couple friends. And it's been interesting. It's brought me into all sorts of new avenues and already starting another company on the side of that and working on a couple new projects. And it's just really exciting.
That's so cool. And it's a concept I've been like, thinking about a lot and just like noticing, I guess, not hearing, but noticing my friends how we don't feel like we deserve to get paid for the things that we're easily like that are easy for us, that we're good at. And it's
Yes.
so interesting. It's like, what? Wait, those are the exact things we should be paid for. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah. I'm not feeling, I think it goes back to just when we do view work, I think especially with us, like we just have seen people succeed now that we have information showing around so fluently. We see, a 12-year-old in another country creating a $2 million business from scratch while doing elementary school. And then you're like, well, how am I supposed to, how do I do? Like, you just feel so undervalued when realistically that should be motivating us and saying, if they can do it, the classic, I can do it. And with all that information free flowing and all these crazy examples, you got to realize that, like, although I think myself, I don't have this crazy origin story or, wild life changing thing that made me do this. It's simply just, it's enough that I enjoy doing this. There are people that need it to be done. And just having that little connection with little credible quantitative college graduation around it, or, certificate, doesn't mean I'm not valued or can create within that space.
That is huge. I love what you said too about because you don't have this big story or like whatever. That's what I've been battling too with being sober. It's like I didn't have an addiction to alcohol. I mean, like I partied like nuts in college,
Mhm.
but yeah, like I don't feel valid in my experience for that. And even with other things that I like doing, and it's such an interesting thing that just because, we're so obsessed with these like big transformations when really we
Mhm.
have these gifts still, even if we, haven't been through that. So I'm proud of you for still doing it, even though, whatever, you're not following that one path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's scary. It's scary to make those jumps without a tipping point, like you're saying, without like, that life-changing experience why you had to stop drinking. It was just a realization. And that can be almost harder because you have to make that move without someone pushing you over the edge, or without a story that's going to like gut wrench and like, completely twist your insides. You just have to look around and realize, if I don't do this now, I'm just gonna put it off till tomorrow. And then tomorrow I've got yoga, so I'll put it off till the next day. And then it's date, like just keeps going and going and going. So it's quite interesting.
I think that's a good concept too. Like even with relationships, we often wait, even when we know something feels off, or like it's like, ooh, I don't know if I want to stay in this, but if there's nothing quote unquote wrong or that's like really going bad, we stay in it until that thing happens. And that's just with any lessons in life. Like often we wait for something really horrible to happen to make a change. And so um it's kind of empowering to like do that beforehand, even though like you said, it is way harder.
Yeah. Yeah, it's much harder. I think acceptance is something we're taught, especially nowadays, in every aspect. We're taught it, like, I think our whole world's just kind of opening its eyes to acceptance globally and in a personal level. Like no matter your differences or status or things like that, I think we now have became a really accepting society, or we're getting there at least. But I think we definitely weren't raised that way. And I'm really excited to see the kids nowadays are being raised in that world. But I think like being a millennial, like I think when we were younger, we still unfortunately had a very unaccepting upbringing, or at least I did. And that's not putting out anyone older than me. I feel like they even had harder and harder just as you go more and more back. But I think that really, really, again, kind of affects you in every decision you make or don't make, because you're just afraid of accepting the fate, whatever it is, or accepting the credibility or validity of your actions.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I feel like I was never felt acceptance before. I had to definitely learn that one. And but I do love what you said, like this the younger kids are learning that, and that's so beautiful. And that's just gonna I'm excited to see how that trickles into society. But you're also talking about like being a not being a jack of or being a jack of all trades and a master of none, which has been a huge pattern in my life and like things that
Yes.
people have always like scared me into. And now that I'm learning about human design, do you know anything about it?
I listened to it was with Ariana.
Yeah, Ariana. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
sounds to me like you're probably a, did you look it up? Do you know what you are?
No, I did not. I only listened to it like 2 days ago.
Oh,
And yeah, it was really interesting. I haven't gotten to it yet, though. I do have it on my list of to-dos, lots of soul searching through that type of thing. But yeah, I'm excited. Did you find out anything interesting about yourself? I,
yeah,
I
you're
heard of,
probably,
obviously in the podcast, I heard a bit of kind of what you were.
yeah, but you're probably a manifesting generator because that's just like who we are, is we love to bounce around and try new things and have our fingers in 10 different pies. And I'm always told to not do that. And yes, there's a better way,
Yes.
like sometimes, but like, yeah. So how have you dealt with being not an expert at something?
Yeah, that phrase has always been in the back of my head. My again going back to upbringing, like my dad went into financial. He's in the banking industry, and he went into that at a young age, and that's what he raised us on, which succeeded very well. But he raised us on, look, you need to dedicate yourself to something and work there long term, and kind of dedicate your passion towards it, which I agree, I think can be very successful. And he's worked there for 30 years, and he did what he wanted to do, which was good for him. But that really stuck with me, and being like, I need to make these decisions and it needs to be right. And that's actually what held me back. Was I never felt like the master at something, so I never committed to it. And I never felt I was valid because I never got the master's degree. I never got like the certificate or the validation from a high up 2 million person follower of a politician or this or that. And that phrase, a jack of all trades is a master of none, always stuck in my head. But then I think it was about 2 months ago, I saw the phrase somewhere on Instagram, someone posted the phrase. That quote is actually not complete. The actual full quotation is, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one, which I was like, ooh, like that is so spot on, because if you do have yourself spread wide, especially the way I'm trying to do it, you can help so many more people and keep life so much more interesting when you're balancing different exciting opportunities and not jumping headfirst into one thing. And that's not saying being a master at one thing is the wrong thing to do. It's just, again, validating that just because you're not the master of one thing doesn't mean you're not doing something very well. You're not doing something that's credible and valuable and okay in society. And that took me a while. And as soon as I saw that phrase incomplete, I was like, God damn it. I really held on to that one for no reason, because that wasn't even the complete quote.
Ugh, yeah, when your old beliefs are smashed, you're just like, whoa. It's crazy how we hold on to these things, it's just like I've actually been living my life like in accordance to like it's never just one belief, but like we truly do hold on to those things, and it's so deeply programmed into our subconscious, and it just feels so good, like you said, to be validated. Like you can be a master if that is your path and that truly lights your heart on fire, like please do. But also I feel like a lot of us are switching to like to learning a lot about a lot of things, and I find that makes life more enriching too, because you're constantly learning new perspectives, you're constantly learning new skills and using different parts of your brains, and you're tapping into creativity. And so I think it's super fun to do that.
He agrees. Yeah, it's definitely an eye-opening experience, and it's cool to see. And I think a lot of people are going through that same realization, whether that's because of the pandemic or because of like my general age group that I'm around in the late 20s. And even since I've started this kind of like brand strategy, creative kind of agency, I've had so many friends reach out to me looking to create something for someone else. They say, hey, I've got a friend, or I've got a coworker, or I've got someone who has the same ideas and has like these like creative outlets and passion projects, and that, project B or, plan C that they've got on their back burner. And they've tried to connect me with them, saying like, I want them to take the jump. Like I'm going to be the connection to kind of push them further. And that's been so cool to see, because I've known these people for a while and I know that they have general interests, but I didn't realize that they could actually push it that far. And it's been cool to see everyone kind of just take these weird outlets, whether they're starting a side project of being a photographer or a record label, even with friends, like just creating a side record label that is gaining huge traction. And yeah, it's just been really interesting to see. And same with yourself. I keep seeing you pop up with new things like the podcast we're on right now. And just always finding new outlets, and that's been really inspiring. Yeah, so I appreciate me having on here in the first place.
I'm so happy you're here. And yeah, I think that's just another part. Like humans are so multifaceted. Like I truly don't know one person that you can't just like one thing. Like it's just not possible. So it's so cool to give yourself permission to explore different parts of yourself. And
Yeah.
and I do love that this pandemic has offered that for people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool that
Yeah,
with your job. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The job you're doing now, that you get to like be that I don't know, like almost like train or something to like help people start this whole journey that they've probably been wanting to do for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And also at the same time terrifying. Because you always think you'll know what you're doing, but people keep saying it time and time again, like not fake it till you make it, but definitely just try. Like I'm not fully sold on fake it till you make it, because I think that can lead you down some dangerous alleys. But I think you just got to try. And even when you're not confident, if it doesn't work, cool. Now you know how to not do that thing and try it a different way. And again, like you were saying, I really feel like we're told to be creatures of one thing, and just, like life was going to go this way. and you'll like this one thing, whether it's work or sexuality or whatever it really is. And as we get older, yeah, you really open your eyes as you spend more and more time, especially alone in pandemic. Even if you got flatmates, you got a lot of time to think. And that self-reflection's definitely opened up so many more avenues. And it's so exciting to see that even at, I mean, not an old age in quotations, being 27, but definitely aging, and seeing how that plays out on your body and your emotional state and everything is just really fascinating.
That's been a huge thing for me too.
Mm.
As an only child, like I was really confused about life because I didn't have really people to talk to, and but I think also like studying abroad and living abroad, I realized like how different people are, and like how there is no one way of life. Like I felt like when I was in college and stuff, like everyone just does this one path. There's like everyone, whether it's through jobs or even, yeah, like with the sexuality, like I feel like I didn't really explore my sexuality till more recently, like literally in the past 2-3 years did I really explore that. And we're just, yeah, we're so not taught about all these things, and so many things that we just don't talk about in general, let alone with even our friends most of the time. And so having like conversations to explore these things, or even having conversations with friends or partners, and to start to really access new parts of yourself and learn about new parts of yourself. And that's why I love this podcast, is to like help people discover different parts of themselves. And I love talking to people from all different backgrounds, because there's so much to explore.
Yeah. Do you feel that you came to those realizations and experiences in a timely manner? Or do you feel they came late, or you weren't ready for them? Or do you think it happened because it happened and that was the right time?
Well, yeah, no, I feel like I came late to a lot of things. Like I like growing up with just a dad, like we didn't have conversations about a lot of things, and he didn't have much
Yeah.
emotional intelligence. And so like even like my periods, like that was almost like it was always a super shameful thing for me. And I
Yeah.
was so confused about it. And then with sex, like no one told me like what sex
Yeah.
was, or
Same.
like I didn't learn about sex. I didn't learn about it till later in life, and like I had conversations till later, and like even like asking my friends questions, and just been like, is this normal, or like having an STD. Like I got STDs in college, and like being like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm gonna be not loved forever, just whatever the
Mhm.
thing is. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I can side with you there. I feel like I was a late, in quotations, bloomer for literally everything. And I was blessed with everything. Like in regards to your, like comparing our situations, I had a sibling. I had both my parents who were super loving, but even with those three connections, no communication at all, both about emotional and physical changes of yourself. And even growing up, like I could not have asked for better parents. But then I look back and I'm like, it's interesting that I, never once was spoken about in these regards of, what sexuality even is, what sex even is, what puberty is, all these things. Like they really heavily just relied on public schooling. And I think that delayed a lot of the systems. So it's so interesting to hear like how I felt like I had a normal childhood, which I think probably due to a lot of people. But even then, it's like so interesting to see what I would do differently, especially now living through that.
Yeah, and I think that's uh, someone else was telling me that too. That when I had someone talking about periods, and she was saying too, like she had an older sister and a great family, and still they never talked about these things. And it's just like it's so normalized to like to not to not communicate on a deeper level. And so I'm really happy that like we are doing that, and like having these
Mhm.
conversations, and starting to explore things with our partners, and and even relationships. Like I have friends that are poly, and they fucking love it. Like, and to even
Mhm.
consider that, like I was like, no, like I mean, I still don't know if I'll ever do that, but still, like now I've heard from them and understand where they're coming from. And it's actually like the deepest form of love, because you have to have the most communication. Like people with poly don't just
Yes.
like, it's not like they just don't give a fuck. They actually communicate even more about everything. And so yeah, just
Mhm.
even that was mind blowing to me.
It all just falls down to trust, really, because unfortunately, you would think with family being blood, that trust would be unbreakable. But realistically, it's not. Like, I can't even count on two hands the amount of times I'd walk on eggshells about topics that were never even spoken about. But I was like, but if I brought it up, eggshells, I could crack at any moment. And now that obviously I'm like blessed living halfway across the world. I can say what I want. Nothing can happen. Like the worst you can do is not answer my call, which is a blessing and a curse, obviously. I do still walk on eggshells because I want us to have a good relationship, but there is still that, like, I feel so blessed that I can live however I want, being in this whole new world over here, especially in lockdown, being this cut off, which I've now faced, and I'm so open with my parents and my sexuality and all these different things. But going back to what you were talking about, especially with like poly and things like that, I remember listening to, I don't know who you were talking to. You were talking to some, I
Kyle.
think it was a guy. Yeah, and he was speaking on that, and that's something that me and my partner have delved into a bit, of kind of opening up the relationship, not for other partners, but other sexual experiences, because if we you just see it so often, especially in like media and stories and family and friends, where like a single sexual encounter can make or break a relationship. And I just don't think sex is that important. Like, unfortunately, I have so much more connected with my partner than just sex. Like, that isn't going to make or break, even if like we stopped, like that wouldn't make or break our relationship. It definitely is the glue and is a big factor. But that's been one of the major growths in ours, was kind of opening up to other partners and other sexual experiences, and it brought us so much closer together. And it was something that I never thought was possible at this age, to be honest. I thought it was things that you kind of make at a younger age, or things that you already kind of value at a younger age, and that you just experience later. And if you don't value it at this point, or think it's okay, you'll never change your mind. And kind of what you said there, where you're like, oh no, but then as you speak to other people, you're like, well, if this lined up and did work, then maybe that is something I could experience. But if I don't, I don't.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's just a common thing told to us in society in so many different ways. Whereas like when you get older, you can't learn a new hobby. When you get older, you can't change careers. Like I was hanging out with my friend. She's I think 45, maybe 50 in Seattle, and she's going through a divorce. And she went to a sex party, orgy party. I don't know what they're called. Like a yeah, literally like a sex. I don't know, whatever. And she was like, I was super conservative. I've only been with one person. Like, never would I ever think I could explore this. Like, I had a threesome, and it's just like, why were we living such rigid lives? Like, we can always explore new parts of ourselves, and as long as you just stay open, like I found that's been one of the biggest keys to my life is staying open to everything, because you truly never know
Mhm.
until you experience it firsthand, and so you talk to more people about it. Like the more people who talk to you, you see their perspective. And yeah, that's so cool that you and your partner were able to deepen your connection through
Mhm.
just trying new things.
Yeah, I didn't think that would be the result. That wasn't our intention, which realistically it should have been from the start. We definitely went into it with the intentions of, look, we live, for background, he's from the UK and I'm from the US, and we both live in Australia on temporary visas. So at any moment, being on a bridging visa is what they call it, at any moment the government could say goodbye, and within 2 weeks we need to book a flight home. So realistically, we just set it up for the fact that, like, look, if we live in different countries, we both are very sexual people. Like, there may be situations where we may bump into someone, and like we would hate for that to be like a fun like bump into and hook up and stuff, and we'd hate for that to be something that ends this. And long distance is definitely something that would play a big factor with that. So that's realistically why we turned our relationship not really open, just kind of monogamish is what I call it, at least. And again, it just falls down to communication, where we tell each other everything about it, about the situation, and that's just kind of one of the rules we've set, and something that works for us in the moment. And just realizing that at any moment it can change. We can take it away completely, we can alter it, we could change the rules. And we thought it was just a placeholder in case we do long distance, but there was a situation where one of us like did hook up with someone else, and when we spoke about it, it was terrifying, but what came of it was us connecting 10 times stronger, which I did not think would be the case. I thought it would be just like, oh, this happened, I'm sorry. But it was, oh, this happened, let's talk about it. Let's, like, did we learn anything? And it was comical how much you end up thinking of the other person within that interaction, and the connection it made was just like leaps and bounds further in our relationship.
I got chills all over my body when you said that.
I
Oh,
did too. I was like, this is not something I mean, I up until like 21, I didn't even think you were allowed to like have relations with the same sex. Like I did not think it was even okay. So it's just like been life-changing seeing how it's not even about that. It's not even about the sexuality. It's just about, like you said, just being open to new ideas, and worst comes to worst, it wasn't for you and you just say okay. But other than that, just don't even like try to talk about it or have an opinion on something until you've experienced it. It's just not worth it. It's just putting energy out into the world that you don't really have an experience based around it. Like obviously communication is key, but making sure that communication comes from a place of knowledge and hopefully an opinion that at least backs that knowledge, and not just kind of spewing your ideas and spewing your opinions and tossing around words about things that you haven't even given a shot.
Yeah, it's so beautiful just having that non-judgmental and like open-hearted. And I love to like, I think this is one of the most important things about like, this is why people don't make decisions or try new things, because they think everything is black and white. And like you said, like first off, I love how that, I believe in the universe, like was just like, here, you guys might be separated because of COVID, so try this. And then actually like was like, wait, this actually brought us so much closer. Like I love how those little things happen. But also back to what I was trying to say is that you try this and like you said, like it can change at any point. Like if you decide, one of you decides that this isn't feeling good, you can change that, and you can change the rules. You can change like the dynamics at any point. It's not like because you decide to have, and also like it doesn't need to have a label too, which I love that you said. But since you're deciding to explore new areas, like you can try it until it doesn't work anymore, until like something else needs to be talked about. And it's never like rigid. Like keeping that fluidity in everything is so magical.
Yeah, not just even sexuality, like you're saying, everything. Something you're bad at, obviously, at any point could become good, and vice versa. There's something that you've been great at your whole life until the world slightly changes its opinion or a direction or style, and you might be bad at it. But the nice part is at least now you have that experience. And yeah, just insane. I really, obviously, it's taken a lot of work, and I think you've assisted in a lot of that as well, even through just these random groups and connections we've made. But you really do have to speak to other people. I think that's key. When you're in a relationship, like I think it's important that you are obviously connecting to each other first and foremost, but realistically, like you said, you need those other perspectives. And listening to podcasts and reading books and reaching out to friends and seeing their experiences on it can be so helpful, especially I think in the sexuality realm. Just because you don't know, and the way you were raised really makes you think your one direction is correct, but it's usually not. Like
Yeah,
you think it's so much more.
it's so much more. Yeah, that vulnerability is key. Like I had to learn that from a young age because I didn't have anyone to talk to. And so every time I'm vulnerable, like maybe 1% of the time it like someone doesn't know how to hold space and it goes weird and I feel awkward and I'm like, why did I share that? But I would say 99% of the time when I'm vulnerable about something, like it just deepens a connection with whoever I'm talking about. I learn something new, and it just like, wow, you just feel so seen and understood and validated, and you just get to like really explore the humanness. Like, and I feel like we so often don't want to explore the realness of our human nature, and vulnerability just truly is the connection to that,
Yeah.
to others.
Do you feel you're able to find those connections with depth? Since you kind of move around and bounce so much, because that's like a similarity with us, is we've definitely traveled a good amount. I think you lived in triple the places I've lived in, and I think I've lived in triple the amount of places the normal human lives in. So like I think it compounds pretty quickly, because I swear I tell you my new address like once every other 6 months. Meanwhile, like I'm just trying to keep up with yours. And that's definitely something I've struggled with, is like, finding those connections, especially when they're raw and like you don't even know the location you're in. And you definitely give off a persona that you can dive into those quickly. But obviously, I have no idea. Is that something you'd be comfortable sharing on, like your comfortability of adapting into these new places and making deeper connections, and if it's even possible within the first 3 months?
Totally. It's been a long journey of learning. It comes down to learning who am I and who do I want, who do I want in my life, and what are my needs and what are my values. I found like it wasn't like scripted out, that's how it was, but looking back it's like that's how I've done it. And so like when I moved to a new area, it's always a little like, okay, at first it was really like, oh, like I have no friends, the sad story, um, kind of thing. But then it was like, okay, what do I like to do? And I'd go do those things and I would meet people. And then like immediately, like I feel like I've just developed my intuition and this ability to like when I meet someone, like I can almost immediately tell if I'm going to connect with them or not. And
Yeah,
I can't really describe it, but then it's just like asking and being vulnerable right off the bat. Like it's taken time to get to where I'm at, but now I feel like I can just be vulnerable right away and just see like how are they going to
that's
react when I say something like this? Like, do we connect more, or is it the opposite? And so just learning how to
yeah.
have more authentic conversations instead of doing the small talk. Like I've kind of like scratched that shit out most of the time, and it
I
just
love that.
I like it, you get straight to the chase right away, and that's how I filter out my friends now. But usually, so like, yeah, I think it's just from like doing things I like to do in whatever city I'm in, and then that attracts people that like the same things, and then from there, then having good conversations and seeing if it's a good conversation or not. But yeah, sometimes it is hard. But now I find like another thing I find is if I'm not in the right place, I don't make friends easily. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
if I've moved somewhere and I'm not attracting friends, if I'm not making friends easily, I'm like, this is not the right place. If I'm not getting a job easily or like whatever, I'm like, okay, there's something out of alignment here. But like when I was in Australia, holy shit, I was meeting people like left and right. Like it was just so crazy. Like
Sounds
this
right.
is where I'm meant to be. So yeah, it is uncomfortable, but I think once you get over the like, if you don't live in that story of like, oh, I'm never gonna find friends, all that thing, and just be like, okay, I'm open to it. I know there's people here for me. No matter where I go, I always find someone. So just like being like, okay, this person is gonna come, or these people.
Yeah, that's super interesting because yeah, I thought 3 years into this now. I think I'm maybe 3 years into leaving, and I've lived abroad prior to that as well. And I thought by now that was a great way to put it because I thought by now small talk would be easy, but realistically, small talk doesn't get you anywhere. It's just super nice and sugar coated and lovely. But now that I think about it, most of the relationships I do have now skipped that step and did require that you kind of got to shotgun the relationship and see if it works because everybody here already has that bubble and has their connections, and most people were raised here or have 10 years worth of connections and things like that. So yeah, that's a good tip. Even though I'm in lockdown and can't connect with humans, but
Yeah.
someday when we get out, I'm excited to make some new connections. And yeah, if anyone's ever moving or traveling around, I commend you, especially post pandemic, and I highly suggest it as well.
Yeah, I mean, even living in Orange County, I've only made a few friends because of the pandemic, but yeah, I find that they're actually like really lovely people and I'm stoked about them, but there's only a few. And now in life, I'm learning like it's really not about the quantity, it's about the quality, which is like such a common saying, but it's so true. Like when you find a few people, like I'm realizing that's all I really need. And then I have all my connections elsewhere. But something else I want to touch on was with dating too, like be honest right from the beginning. If you're looking for a commitment, like if you're looking for like a real relationship and not a hookup, which
Mhm.
yeah, whatever, wherever you are, like say it right away. And if that scares someone away, boom, bada bang, good. It's like
Yeah.
you should be wanting that. We want to filter out people immediately. We're not trying to like waste time. Like our time and energy is so precious, and that's what I've really learned too. Is like I honor myself, and like I don't want to wait 2 months to see if this person is actually be someone I want to connect with. I just want to know right away.
That's so refreshing to hear in any regards of a connection, whether the relationship is sexual or just meaningful or friendship. I think it's super important, and I think it's so tricky, especially when most of us live in culturally diverse areas, and there's a lot of cultures who do not feel that way and feel there has to be that waiting period, and even with friendships, there needs to be those very chill and shallow, not shallow in a mean way, shallow and like we just touch on surface topics and it's inappropriate to speak on anything deeper just because you don't really know each other. You can't trust each other. But it's like even if they disappear tomorrow, like if you just met them, nothing's going to happen. Like you
Yeah.
have not committed a life to them. So it really, like you said, can't hurt to really jump into it and find out from the get-go, whether it's the first time or the couple of first times you hang out, really kind of dive into it and make sure that's something that's worth both of you, because it's your time and energy. It's important. It's limited. It's very limited, especially nowadays. I got like this much energy.
Dude, I feel that so much. I'm like, whoa, I
For
don't
those
know how I
listening,
used to.
for those listening, a half of an inch is how much I have in my 17 hours of a day. So you got to use it wisely.
Yeah, and I think it's like important to lead with it. Like like how I live is like I am the one making the first step. Like I am the one being bold and courageous, and like it isn't always easy, sometimes, but it's you get more comfortable with it, I find. And also you have to lead with trust, which is like if you've watched Raya and the Last Dragon, I love this movie, and it always talks about like you have to trust first and lead with that, and then that creates that connection first. And like even if people in their culture are taught not to be vulnerable or not to be this, like if you're that example that gives them permission to access that part of themselves and to maybe experiment trusting really early on, and sometimes it won't go well, and like that's okay, like that's gonna happen, and being okay with that, that does happen. But like I said, most of the time it doesn't go that way. It actually goes in a positive way. And but you have to take that first scary step to be that person. But this also comes back to like having that self-love and having that self-worth, and like knowing that you have your own back, because otherwise you're like crumbled if someone doesn't accept you, and then you're like, holy shit, no one likes me, and you go down that spiral, which I used to do a lot. But like now I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, I've got myself, like I'm gonna be okay if this person doesn't like me or if this doesn't work out.
Mhm. Yeah, it is vital, and it's so easily said. Obviously, a lot harder to do. I know you're not saying it's easy,
Yeah.
but it is. Yeah, that is refreshing to hear, and I have to tell myself that all the time. Like it does come down to being in the right space, both when it comes to work, when it comes to personal life, relationships. Like you always need to make sure you yourself are in the right space. Why are you here? What are you doing? And again, just accepting the outcome no matter what. Like you said, 99% of the time it is good. Even if it's not the ideal direction that you wanted it to come out with, there's a good chance the other person learned something from it if you're the one who didn't also learn. And yeah, it just goes back to just putting yourself out there. I hate that phrase because that's literally what your parents tell you as like a kid, trying to make friends and shit. But it's definitely something I've been experimenting with, is just put myself out there, saying yes to everything and no to anything that's not aligned with my values.
Yeah, I think too, it's like I used to be a learning addict. Like I would learn all the ways to do this, learn all the things. Like, how can I talk to people? I used to be so bad at communication. And it's like, really, it's all about action. It's like, you have to, just like your work, like you were saying, like you might fail, but it truly comes down to like, you can learn and read and do all these things as much as you want, but until you're actually practicing it, it won't become easier.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is hard, you're right, like it isn't easy, but like it becomes easier once you try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying and trying and trying again.
I know, so much trying. Okay, so if someone wants a website made or something epic like that, where can they find you and how can they work with you?
Yeah, literally, like I said, I am a jack of all trades. If you want someone to crochet you a hat, I can do it, but that is not my actual job these days.
He does crochet,
But
very good.
you can reach to me at just my name, Chad Berry, ChadBerry.com. Yeah, anything brand design, strategy, content, social media, photography. If you just want to talk about business, if you just want to sit down for an hour and just chat about decisions, I'm literally locked down and ready to talk. And that's literally what I've been doing, just chatting with friends and helping them in their passion projects and working through weird situations they're in and rules and regulations for businesses and all these different things. And yeah, just like we said, kind of just throwing myself out there in the deep end for all sorts of different directions, until I get my event job back in order. I normally am running events and things like that. But like I said, I always want to be rocking a plan B, always having a side project going. So I plan on doing this long term for sure.
Yay. And you're super creative and I love your mind. And I also just love like you're really easy to talk to about anything, which is nice when you're doing business stuff, because often when we're seeking help in business, we have to be vulnerable to be like, I don't know what to do here. Like we need guidance. And so it's important to have someone like you who's non-judgmental and is like, hey, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And let me help you. I forgot to ask this at the beginning as always, what was the last random act of kindness someone did for you?
Last random act of kindness. That's tricky because I'm in my house with the same flatmates every single day. Um, it wasn't really towards me, but it definitely helped me. I live right by the beach and there's a big fence that kind of goes along it. And someone did like a nice little activity where they printed off a bunch of papers that were like laminated and just left out markers and just said, write something nice. Like, let's get some positivity going on our beach. Cause all day when you're walking around, you just walk by everyone and everyone says like, oh, I'm stuck inside, COVID, like this, it's just negativity when you're walking around. So it's really refreshing to see that. And that was not necessarily an act of kindness to me, but it was for me. Like I saw it and it was positive, and it was just nice seeing positive words for once, because these days you can go 4 or 5 days where only the media says negativity. The only voices you hear are negativity. You go into the shop with your face mask on and everyone's talking negativity. So it was really just a nice little reminder that there is positivity, and every single note had something positive going on in someone's life. And even in the dark, there's definitely heaps and heaps of good happening. And I hope to continue spreading that good through everything I can do.
That is so cute. I love that you shared that. And that's like the perfect random act of kindness and so needed, especially where you are. I'm so happy that someone did that. And I'm sure you're going to find a way to, continue to spread that and bring more of that out.
Yeah.
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 Thank you so much for being here and for opening up on this podcast.
No, thank you. Thank you. I hope you have a killer 365 podcasts and hopefully more after that.
Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck did I sign up for? But I'm loving it. It's great. So.
I think it's a genius idea. And I was telling you earlier, it's terrifying how aligned they are with things that will be going on in my life. Like just strange. Even if I don't even listen to some of them, like it'll pop up like a little warning on my phone whenever you post them. And even just the title will send me down a spiral of ideas and thoughts and things I should be doing, and little reminders and stuff like that. So literally even when I'm super busy and I'm not able to give a listen, just know that even the titles of your names are like nice little prompts to keep me going and keep me active. I still do listen to a good amount, but yeah, keep on going. It'll flash by, and like you said, it'll be an awesome journal of your life this year and be an insane way to document 365, not every single day other people, but a cool way to document 300 other lives as well.
Yeah, it's facts. And like that's like collective consciousness. This is a big topic I've been talking about recently. I know we're continuing talking this. I was gonna end it, but just really quick, like we all are going through so many of the same things, and we have so many of the same ideas at the same time, because like we aren't just 3D humans. And I think that's such a great reminder. Like I can talk to someone like, you in Australia or my friends in England and be like, whoa, we're facing the same things right now, or like we're thinking about the same things. So super interesting. And I also like, this is my favorite part, is having people share their voice. And almost, I would say like 80% of the people I have in my podcast are like, I'm not a podcaster, like I have nothing to share, like like say those things, you said it, like everyone says. And I'm like, everyone, there's no episode that someone's been like, I don't resonate with that, like, or like it's like we all have something beautiful to share. And it's such a great reminder, because I feel that way too sometimes when I'm on here. I'm like, no one wants to hear me talk, but it's not about that. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me on. Bye-bye.